What's going on, guys? Welcome back and happy new year. Finally starting to get settled into the new place. Really excited to finally get going again here. First video of the new year, January 1st. And we've got a commander deck for Patron, Ralph. This deck was actually came purchased before Christmas, and because I was moving, I wasn't able to get into it. But now that we're kind of getting settled here, I'm able to get that video together, and let's get these cards out to him. So a few things here real quick. First, yes, new background. So guest room right now, kind of using this as the guest room slash magic room, and got the computer set up in here. Absolutely love it, and so happy to be here and be settled in. And secondly, before I finally put this in the mail, announce winners. This was our first affiliate, so I just want to give a shout out one more time before this goes in the mail with all of its beautiful lands. This is from Arcane Fortress, and this was a deck box they sent me, and I wanted to get that out to one of our subscribers commenting on one of our last openings. I believe that was the Foundations play box, and dude, guys, this thing made the move. Cards inside are still in great shape. It's honestly absolutely amazing product, well put together. The more I look at it, the more actually I'm like, dude, I kind of want to keep this. It's got my colors right here. We're going mono black. It's so good luck to whoever wins this. Absolutely awesome product. You guys can check their link out below. You can also check out the other video where I go a little more in depth. I don't want to spend too much time on it, but I did want to give one last shout out to Arcane for sending this to me. So thank you so much, guys, because it just gave me one other thing that I could give away to you guys as appreciation for the support. So, moving on. This was a very interesting deck to put together. So, first of all, I struggled finding a teamer deck commander for some reason. I guess the cards that I was looking through, there was two other ones I had an option from, and they were both the same thing, and they were both Cascade. And I was like, it's Cascade's too specific. I try to avoid very, very specific builds like Cascade that depend on you finding cards that either have Cascade or really going to synergize with them. So unfortunately, I wasn't able, because I forget what the commander was, but it was every time you Cascade, you're going to, you basically do something. So I wasn't able to build the Cascade deck because that would have been even more of a struggle to even find Cascade cards throughout rares, commons, uncommons. I probably would have had to sort through my entire collection just to even be able to get a 100 card deck together that had a good synergy. So I ended up finding Borborygmos. I knew I was going to struggle with this one. So we got Fblthp and Borborygmos. This is from March of the Machine, small set, but actually I really like this set. They introduced so many really, really cool. Oh no, Aftermath was the small one. This is normal set, but they introduced a ton of really cool, kind of these crossover legendary creatures where they smashed two together, came up with new abilities, and they have this one. So whenever Borborygmos, I'm just going to call him Bobo. So whenever Bobo and Fblthp enter the battlefield or attack, you're going to draw a card. And you're going to discard any number of land cards. When you discard one or more cards this way, they were going to deal twice that much damage to target creature. And then you could pay two, say one and a blue, and you could put him into your library, third from the top. All right, so a little bit of protection there. Not too much we want to do there unless we have a lot of massive, massive draw, because we just have the option to send him right back to our command zone if anything happens to him. But anyways, good old Commander Sphere. Getting right into the cards. Ralph, thank you for your support, man. Really appreciate it. Sorry it took so long, but I did put some really cool things in here. And the interesting thing about this deck that I put together is that it's very unassuming. You know, like you guys are going to see it as we go through it. And there are a ton of ways that Ralph is going to be able to add cards, change it up to what he likes. He could even go in a total different direction. I put in a bunch of cards on the side that would give him some additional options that I just couldn't figure out if I wanted to cut them or not. But there are so many things that you can do with this deck now. So obviously we're going to run Swiftfoot Boots. Our commander, we want to keep that commander alive. I would probably, so let's go through the mana rocks first. We got Manalith, Arcane Signet. Let's see. I think I had a few more here right on top. Maybe not. Let's see if we can't find those real quick. So when it comes to the mana rocks, we're running 38 lands. I would honestly, I think we could probably cut the mana rocks and we can put in other things that we're going to be interested in running, simply for the fact that we do have those 38 lands. There is a ton of draw, so I went the route of draw for this deck. A nice little Glasspool Mimic, also doubles as a land if we really need to, but that's kind of one we'd rather see Glasspool Mimic come out. Let's just go ahead and take a look at some of these lands real quick, since they are absolutely stunning. We've got Urza's Cave. Sacrifice it, search your library for a land card, put it on the battlefield, tap and shuffle. Bountiful, we're going to go look for a forest, island, or mountain. You can also cycle it. Nice Spire Gardens right there. Thornspire Verge. Command Tower, good old Command Tower. Sokinzen, we can discard it, get us some... we can get us some little 1/1 tokens, Sulphur Falls, Shibone Reef, and some beautiful, oh my gosh. Oh, dude, these Galaxy lands, every time I make a deck for Patron, so I just, these lands, they're so beautiful. I absolutely love when we hit those when I'm sorting through lands. Just absolutely gorgeous. And honestly, a lot of times these value too comes in these lands, because for $60 putting these together for the patrons, I mean, you look, we just came across what, 5-6 of those Galaxy foils, and I think the cheapest one's probably like $3. They go from $3 to $10. Absolutely insane. So anyways, talking about the mana rocks, we can push those mana rocks out for some other things that we're looking for. Since we are running those 38 lands, we're playing green too, so you could even swap them out for green spells that are going to drop land onto the battlefield for you. The mana rocks do put it, they are vulnerable, whereas there aren't a whole lot of decks that are going to be playing land destruction. So we could just kick those mana rocks out and go straight for hard putting lands onto the battlefield, since we are running green, and protect us in our ramp a little bit better. So those are some options for you, Ralph. Let's go right into some more of the cards. One thing I will say that this deck is going to need, and we'll jump right to that real quick. Oh man, I could not find any spells. So something like Conduit of Worlds, just got my little cheat sheet up here real quick. So we're going to play lands from our graveyard, obviously. The commander itself is going to be kicking lands into the graveyard. So Conduit of Worlds, I might even put, we got Ramadop Excavator, may play land cards from your graveyard. So maybe 3 of those spells would be great, so that we have some recur from our graveyard, since we're going to be ditching those lands to deal damage. And then it's also going to give us a little bit of ramp, because, well, if we miss, not really ramp, but we can catch up if we do miss land drops and we've ditched our lands. We're going to be able to play those from the graveyard and still ditch. And we're going to get the draw for it. So absolutely great mechanic there. But Inscription of Abundance, 2-drop, we can kick it for 3. If this spell was kicked, you can choose any number instead. So you're going to put 2 +1/+1 counters on target creature. You can gain some life, and then X is the greatest power among creatures you control, or you can make a creature fight a target creature that you don't control. Pretty much utility right there. You've got some great options. If you're able to kick this later on and get all 3, that is fantastic. Really like this card in green. Anytime you have cards that are going to allow you to do multiple options at any point, especially being a 2-drop, absolutely fantastic. Yes, we can kick it up to 5 later in the game and just activate all 3. Plus, we're going to gain life, which is really important because we have a lot of group hate in this deck. So, seeing as how we're going to be ditching lands and we're going to be drawing, I went more the route of just pinging people throughout the game and punishing everybody for doing things. So, you're going to see that right here. Roiling Vortex. Beginning of each player's upkeep, it's going to deal 1 damage to them. And then when a player casts a spell, if no mana was spent to cast that spell, Roiling Vortex is going to deal 5 damage to that player. And then your opponents can't gain life this turn, which is going to be really important because we don't want people to gain life when we're pinging them. You know, if you're pinging the whole group and you've got that one person who's just life gaining above everybody else, we want to stop that life gainer. So we're primarily going to save that for any of those mono white decks that are just out of control. Ourselves too, Ralph, for adjustments, I would probably throw 1 or 2 equipment in that are going to give your creatures lifelink. It can catch up to you pretty quick, especially since it's not a super heavy creature deck. The primary creature is going to be your commander, and then there are some supporting casts that are going to be going into this. So Glasspool Mimic there. Have a copy, enter it as a copy of a creature you control, except it's Shapeshifter, Rogue, in addition to its other types. Obviously, we're not going to be able to use that on our legendary creatures, but we do have a ton of regular creatures in here that we can get some great benefit from. So Wayward Guide Beast, Trample Haste. When he enters, when it deals combat damage to a player, return a land you control to its owner's hand. So you have the option if you want to turn this deck into a landfall deck, right? So you can keep just bringing those lands back, especially late game. If you're able to get this guy through, give him flying, something like that. Even, I mean, it's only 2/2, but if you're able to continuously just bring those lands back. And in addition to that, if you just bring the land back, you don't play it, and you throw it, then you ditch it into your graveyard the next turn, you're going to get that 2 ping from your commander. You're going to be able to get more draw. So you get a lot of extra bonus from this card. It's going to recur. It's also only a 2/2 for 1, which is nice. So it's a 1-drop. It's not going to cost you a whole lot. And it's really going to fit into the speed of this deck. The theme is great, especially considering that there are not a whole lot of cards that cost over 5 in this deck. So the 38 land really is going to just be for ditching those lands. So if you're drawing a whole ton of, like a ton of land, that's great. We're going to ditch it. So really picking up a card or two that is going to give you graveyard recursion for your lands is going to be really important, just as far as improving this deck. Heroic Intervention, permanents you gain, you control, gain hexproof and indestructible. You know it's green. It's a fantastic card. Good lifesaver. Why not? Refuse. Refuse deals damage to target spell's controller, equals that spell's converted mana cost. And then Aftermath. Copy target insert sorcery spell. You may choose new targets for the copy. This is a really cool card. Alright. So you can actually take this card. We can refuse somebody for 4. Let it resolve as a player's going through their turn. But before their spell actually resolves, let's say they cast a massive burn damage spell, or even something like an Exsanguinate or some crap like that, we can actually let this hit that person for their refuse. Let it hit the graveyard, and then we can Aftermath it while it's in the graveyard before their spell resolves, and go ahead and copy ours and let our spell resolve, which is amazing because then we can end up killing this person before it's even time for them to go. So very cool there. Monastery Siege. Whew. As Monastery Siege enters the battlefield, choose cons or dragons. At the beginning of your draw step, draw an additional card, then discard a card. Spells your opponent's cast that target you or a permanent you control cost 2 more to cast. So something else I was thinking about with this deck, potentially adding in one of the Eldrazi that's going to hit your graveyard and let you shuffle your graveyard back into your library when it hits the graveyard. Something along those lines, or even just shuffling your graveyard back into your library. 1 or 2 spells that are going to allow you to do that is really going to be a great way to make sure that this deck just keeps going, especially because there is a ton of draw, a ton of discard. It would be nice to see that come back at some point in the game. So 1 or 2 spells, maybe even just 1. You're not even going to need a lot. But Niv Mizzet, the Firemind, yes. And there's a new Niv Mizzet as well. We could even add that bad boy in here and make our own infinite combo. Has nothing to do with the commander. However, there is so much draw in this deck. It just didn't make sense to not include this. So this is one of the few spells in here that is over 5 mana. I think there might be, I don't know, including the commander, there's probably 6 spells in here. So having that draw and even hitting all the lands is going to be so fast for you as far as a teamer deck goes. It's just going to offer the opportunity to play a lot of different things. So if you can adjust it and keep it around that same mana curve, you're just going to love it. So Niv Mizzet, Firemind, when you draw a card, it's going to deal 1 damage to target creature or player. You can tap them and draw a card. Banefire. It's going to deal X target damage to creature or player. And then if X is 5 or more, it can't be countered by spells or abilities, and the damage can't be prevented. So this is one of 2 kind of late game finishers that we included in here. Pretty much, I mean, if you're getting to the point where you have just so much mana and it's time for the game to end, we're just going to Immolating Inferno for X to 3 different targets, or we can just Banefire maybe our one last opponent. So we get 2 of those in there, kind of our finishers. We've got Conqueror's Galleon. I just couldn't leave this out when I flipped it over and I read the back. And so we're gonna get it transformed. And it seems ridiculous too, but it just fit the theme. So you can draw a card, discard a card for 2. You can pay 4 to draw a card, or you can pay 6 to return a card from your graveyard to your hand. Honestly, that last one, I'm probably going to save it for the end of the person before me's turn. Yeah, so I just thought, hey, why not? Let's pay 6 and return cards from our graveyard. It is fairly easy to get it to transform. So when it attacks, exile it at the end of combat, and then return it to the battlefield transformed under your control. Costs 4 to crew. It's a 2/10. Unless something's got Death Touch, I doubt it's going to be dying. So we're going to get that transformation off. Emperor's Vanguard. When it deals combat damage to a player, it's going to explore. If you're not familiar with explore, it's going to reveal the top card of your library. You're going to put the card into your hand if it's a land, and then you're going to put a +1/+1 on it otherwise, and you can choose to put it back or put it into your graveyard. So Nice is going to help out with that draw theme. We're going to be able to basically scry if it's anything not a land. If it's a land, great. We can put it into our hand, and then we can ditch it to deal 1 or 2 damage. 2 damage or more to our opponents. Amulet of Safekeeping. Whenever you become the target of a spell or ability an opponent controls, counter that spell or ability unless its controller pays 1. Creature tokens get -1/-0. This was just another kind of card that we're just ditching out some pain to pretty much everybody who's going to be targeting us. Honestly, the weakest of the ones, so if this is something that you end up ditching for a sideboard or your graveyard land recursion, that would be great. But it really fit the theme that I had started to build upon, which was to make everybody kind of pay for things and deal some damage. Trading Post, great card. So we're going to sacrifice an artifact, draw a card. That's really what we're going for, because we're going to have some artifact generation here at some point in the deck. We can also pay 1 life, build our goat, then take our goat and sacrifice it and return an artifact from our graveyard. Kamal's Druidic Vow. Look at top X cards of your library. You may put any number of land and or legendary permanent cards with converted mana cost X or less from among them onto the battlefield, put the rest into your graveyard. Whew. So, depending on when they play this in this game, we could pretty much deck our entire... We could pretty much put the rest of our lands from our deck into the battlefield. And then we can put all our creatures out there. The only thing I want to avoid is if we do put a high mana cost Eldrazi or something like in there that's going to let us get that library graveyard shuffle, then I want to avoid that. But this is going to be a fun card, going to let us hit a lot of landfall, especially if you do go that landfall route. You could basically just dump that entire thing in 1 turn. Backdraft Hellkite. Whenever it attacks, each instant sorcery card in your graveyard gains flashback until end of turn. The flashback cost is equal to its mana cost. You get a nice little 5-drop here. It's going to give us some access to some of those instants and sorceries. I would say we probably have about 10 to 15 instant and sorceries, so you could see quite a good bit of value out of this, especially since we're playing green. If you swap out for some of those more permanent ramp spells, you are going to be able to reuse those, which is great. We don't have anything in the deck that's going to really care how many instant sorceries are in the library, so we don't have to worry about exiling them after we're done casting them. Wildest Dreams. Returning X cards from your graveyard to your hand, and then we're going to exile it. So we may need to use this for 2 or 3, just so we can get some of those key cards back from our graveyard in case they get destroyed. It's going to be a great card for us to go refetch some of our key cards. Bloodford Battle Axe. Whenever a equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, you're going to create a token that's a copy of it. You're going to see why we're interested in this. This is going to pair up nicely with one of the other cards in here. We'll go ahead and just show off. I mean, we really like Karn Living Legacy. Karn really fit the theme of we're trying to get things that are just going to ping and punish our opponents. So we want to see that -7 get popped off. So we're going to create a bunch of Power Stones, and then we're just going to use all of the artifacts that we have to just ping multiple targets, probably just direct to face to our opponents, since hopefully by the time we get that off, a lot of our other enchantments are going to have already been bringing everybody down a little bit. We have Nalith of the Dire Hunt. Whenever one of our creatures you control fight or become blocked, we're going to draw a card. At the beginning of combat on your turn, you may pay 3. If you do, double target creature's power until end of turn. That creature must be blocked this combat if able. Dude, Nalith is dirty. Alright, so we're just going to double up probably our commander or somebody like that with high amount of power, and we're just going to knock somebody. We want to give them flying, make them unblockable, whatever we can do, it doesn't even matter. If we do want them to be blocked, let's let them get blocked and kill some things off. So, plus we get to draw a card. It's just, oh my gosh. That's a pretty dirty support card right there. Descent into Avernus. At the beginning of your upkeep, put 2 Descent counters on it, and then each player creates X treasure tokens, and Descent into Avernus deals X damage to each player, where X is the number of Descent counters on Descent into Avernus. So, that's gross. This is going to speed the game up really, really fast, and hopefully start dishing out one, it's going to give treasure tokens. 2, it's then going to deal damage to everybody. So, we're basically putting the counter on the game when this card hits the battlefield, which is what we want. We're not trying to play all night, right? Let's hurry up and get game 2 into play. So we're going to traverse the Outlands. We're going to search our library for up to X basic land cards, where X is the greatest power among creatures you control. Put those cards onto the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle. Now I just thought about it. So let's see here real quick. At the beginning of combat on your turn, you may pay 3 if you do double target creature's power until end of turn. Oh man. So let's go ahead and double our power to the end of turn. Use Traverse the Outlands. That sounds fun. And get a massive, massive landfall. Thundering Raiju. I just love Thundering Raiju. Such a great way to put counters on. And then we're going to just deal X damage to each opponent. Really, really good card. And we don't even need to make him attack anybody special, just as long as he gets through. So if nobody has a creature on the battlefield or they're tapped down, he's got haste, so we can just throw him out. We're going to get a free +1/+1 counter on something, and then we're going to knock some damage. Thanos, Urza's Apprentice. So he's got haste. We're going to copy target activated or triggered ability you control from an artifact source. You may choose new targets for the copy. Crystalline Giant. So we don't have a lot of lifelink in this deck. We already mentioned that, which is going to be really nice. Crystalline Giant, he's 3, doesn't cost anything. If we're struggling with trying to filter for any reason and we get this guy, he can come in handy. He's an artifact, so a little bit harder to kill. If you have artifact-specific removal, that's kind of going to suck. But as far as creature goes, we're going to be able to give him hexproof, which will be nice, which is even going to make him more difficult to kill. And if he gets flying, first strike, death touch, if he's long enough for this to actually build up, and then we're able to maybe combo him with something like Thundering Raiju, this becomes a huge, huge menace. So I hope we do see that. Cold-Eyed Selkie. He's got Island Walk. Hopefully we have somebody on the board with blue, because when it deals combat damage to a player, we can draw that many cards. If we can get this guy pumped up even just a little bit, he's going to provide massive, massive draw to us against knocking that island player for, even if we just ping him for 1, 2, or 3 every single turn. So you're going to have an additional 1, 2, 3 cards, and we're going to be getting that person down just a little bit more. At the beginning of your end step, target enchantment deals damage equal to its converted mana cost to its controller unless that player sacrifices it. We're just going to save this for somebody who has a really nasty enchantment we want to get rid of. You can keep the enchantment if you think it's going to help you win, or just keep taking damage and die. The Peregrine Dynamo. It has haste. You can copy target activated triggered ability you control from another legendary source. That's not a commander. You may choose new targets for the copy. You're going to see some combos that you can use this with. It's going to be very interesting. You're going to have some fun interactions. It also opens the door to add in other legendary creatures that are going to synergize well with your commander. This is just a really fun card. It fits our mana too, so we're in that three drop zone. We've got a lot of 3-4 drops in this deck, so if you ramp into 6-7 mana very quickly, you're going to have a lot to do every single turn, especially if you keep that draw very, very high. You're going to have a lot of card advantage, and it's going to cost you very, very little to do things every single turn. Maybe one thing that you might want to consider, since we are playing blue, I don't know how many actual counter spells we added into this deck. I don't think it was a whole lot. Let's take a look. I think it's in the back. Obviously, so we'll take a look here real quick at the uncommons while we're back here. Grow from the Ashes, got a little bit of ramp here. Aetherize, we're going to return all attacking creatures to their owner's hands. So if we're playing a nasty little fast speed red or white deck or token generation deck just in general, we're just going to be able to save ourselves. We've got that one player who's basically going to just swing at everybody and say, hey, game's pretty much over. That may be a great way to save us. It's going to clear up the board state, kind of give us a little reset on that person who's just overpowering and running away with a very high aggro deck. Reclamation Sage, going to enter the battlefield, destroy targeted artifact or enchantment. Bushwhack, use it early to go search for a land that you need, or if you get into a good place, you can use this as a way to fight with creatures later on. Disdainful Stroke. This card is so... I love this card. I absolutely love this card. It's just like, there are so many things that we're going to use counterspells for, and most of the time they have more than 4 mana costs that this is going to be something that we want to take out, right? So it's a target spell. It's not instant, it's not sorcery, it's not creature specific, which is great. And most of the things that have high threat in Commander are going to be over 4. I absolutely love Disdainful Stroke. Anything that does things like that and it's not spell specific and it reduces its casting cost because it only targets things over 4, that's fantastic. I just like the card, especially for mid games. There's just so many things that are going to be in its range that people are going to be playing. Yeah, sometimes it's going to suck. They're going to have that perfect 1-drop or 2-drop. But okay, you can't have a perfect response for everything. But if we're able to put in a card that has a massive range for other decks, that is a fantastic card to include. I love Disdainful Stroke as far as counterspells go. Horizon Seeker, we've got Boast. 2, search for your library for a basic land card, reveal it, and put it to your hand, and shuffle your library. Very cool card, synergizes well with our commander. We're going to get lands into our hand, and then we can either ditch them or we can play them. Great way to thin the deck out. It just costs Boast, which is 2 extra mana. But considering how much we have the opportunity to ramp in the deck, we're not really worried about a lot of those kicker costs or those boast costs or things like that. As an additional cost to cast this spell, tap an untapped artifact you control or pay 1, counter target spell. Exile target artifact or enchantment. Fairhaven Elf. We're going to search our library for a basic land card. It's also going to give us a 1/1 little chump blocker, so that can come in handy. Like I said, it's not a huge creature deck, so maybe including something that's going to help us. Oh, hey, there we go. Speaking of which, we might need some tokens. So again, we don't want our opponents to gain life playing this deck. We want to keep everybody kind of basically moving along at the same rate there. And then hopefully finish something with one of our immolating spells for X. But your opponents can't gain life. They're going to 1/1 red creature token with... This creature dies, it deals 1 damage to any target. So we got a little chump blocker devil there for the -2. We can only do it 2 times, and then basically Tybalt's just there to keep people from gaining life. An offer you can't refuse. Target counter target non-creature spell, and they get to create 2 treasure tokens. Pongify, destroy target creature. Pongify is such a BS card. Why is this in blue? All right. Destroy target creature. It can't be regenerated. Its controller creates a 3/3 green ape creature token. I mean, it's just not a blue card. Personal opinion. Blue doesn't do things like destroy target creatures. But it's absolutely fantastic because there are not a whole lot of things that are going to be destroy target creatures to put that in there. You might catch some people off guard with that card. So they're expecting a counterspell, and they're just like, you know, I'm not going to play something. You keep one blue open. They have this creature over there. It doesn't have hexproof on it. And it could just really, really be played at a key time. And a lot of people may not be seeing that coming. So Oracle of Tragedy. When Oracle of Tragedy enters the battlefield or dies, choose one, draw a card, discard a card, shuffle up to 4 target cards with mana value 3 or greater from your graveyard into your library. The majority of the deck is 3, 4, 5 drops, so you're going to get value from that. You're going to get to do this twice, so when it enters battlefield and when it dies. Prowler's Helm. Can't be blocked except by walls. Oh, those pesky walls. But the quick creature can't be blocked except by walls. I don't know how many people are playing wall decks, so this is just going to give unblockable to one creature. Alexi's Cloak. It's going to, you can play this with Flash, and then enchanted creature can be the target of spells or abilities. I believe that is Shroud. Correct me if I'm wrong below, but I'm pretty sure that's just Shroud. This is probably before the rules text was changed for that. This is card printed, year 2000. Okay. Alright, so back over to some of the rares and mythics. Got Flame Blast Dragon. Whenever it attacks, you may pay X and whatnot. If you do, Flame Blast Dragon deals X damage to any target. One of the heavier 6 drops. The nice thing about some of these dragons in here and some of these cards is you can swap them out for lower curve things that are going to synergize a little bit more. But seeing as how we do have a lot of mana, I thought of keeping in a few cards at the top. That are going to be at the top of our range just because they're going to be nice finishers. So if we do happen to get towards late game, everybody's kind of slowed down a little bit, but we have a ton of mana out there, ton of lands, and we can just throw this out there and slowly knock people off if they can't do anything about it. So it's going to be great. It's going to deal X damage to any target, and all we have to do is attack with it and pay X. So we can essentially finish some people with that dragon right there. Kiora, the Rising Tide. Enters battlefield, draw 2 cards, then discard 2 cards. When it attacks, if there are 7 or more cards in your graveyard, which as much as this deck is drawing and discarding, that should be fairly easy. You may create Scion of the Deep, a legendary 8/8 octopus creature token. Jorel Monvuli 1. I'm not sure how. Yeah, we're going to say Monvuli Recluse. So whenever you draw your second card each turn, we're going to create a 2/2 green creature cat token, and then until end of turn, creatures you control have base power and toughness XX, where X is the number of cards in your hand. Which reminds me, we don't have a Reliquary Tower in this deck, so I would recommend a Reliquary Tower, maybe even another creature or enchantment that is going to give you infinite hand size for the rest of the game, just because there is so much draw and discard, and then just straight draw. That's really going to ensure that we're not discarding things when we may not necessarily want to, because sometimes we just want to keep some of those lands in our hand and just discard them all at once, right? And just ping everybody. Immolation Shaman. Whenever an opponent activates an ability of an artifact, creature, or land that isn't a mana ability, it's going to deal 1 damage to that player. So another one of those spells that's just going to kind of bring everybody down a little bit at a time. Hopefully we're going to see a lot of that proc. Jaxus, the Troublemaker. 1 and tap. Discard a card, create a token that's a copy of another target creature you control. It gains haste, and when this creature dies, draw a card, sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step, activate only as a sorcery. So we can actually use this to copy our commander and just let our commander sacrifice due to the legendary rule. So then you're also going to get to draw a card from the commander twice, which is fantastic. Pretty fun card, going to synergize pretty well. We just want to use that copy other creature. And then this creatures you control have haste. I love giving creatures that we control have haste so we can start doing things right away when they come out onto the battlefield. But in addition to that, with that power 4 or greater, when it enters the battlefield, you are going to draw a card. Well, you may draw a card, which is nice. So if we have Jaxus doing our commander, we're going to get to draw a 3rd card. If we have any of our, our Kioras out there, we knock any of our dragons, anything over 4 is going to be great. Most of the creatures that we have either have high synergy or they are over 4 power. So we're going to get that draw we should get it pretty often. Wizard's Spellbook. I think this might be our highest mana cost spell in the deck, and I just couldn't say no to it when I saw it, because we're going to exile target instant or sorcery card from a graveyard, and we're going to roll a d20 and activate it only as a sorcery. So hopefully we roll a 20, and we're going to copy each card exiled with Wizard's Spellbook, and we're going to cast it any number of times without paying its mana cost. 10 to 19, you're going to copy the card. You may cast the copy by paying 1 rather than paying its mana cost. And then we can also play 1 to 9, and we're going to get a 1 to 9. We're going to copy that card and cast a copy, but we have to pay its mana cost. So we can exile cards from other people's graveyards and cast their own instants and sorcery spells. We can also just do it to ourselves, which is really cool. So it's kind of fun. We're going to get some graveyard recursion on ourselves. Hopefully we can use this on some spells and get them for free, or at least pay them. I would say paying 1 is pretty nice versus its mana cost. Worst case scenario, we're basically giving our instant and sorceries flashback. So do make sure that you can play anything that's in your graveyard when you use this. You do not, or at least the card that you're going to exile. Cinder Vines. Whenever an opponent casts a non-creature spell, it's going to deal 1 damage to that player. You can sack it and pay 1 and destroy target artifact or enchantment. Again, we're just kind of dishing out those little pings to the group, making them pay for any time they do something. Umbilicus. This is an interesting card. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player may pay 2 life. If they don't, they return a permanent they control to its owner's hand. This should definitely speed up the game quite a bit. So they're going to have to pay the 2 life. Otherwise, hopefully we're not going to see this with big ETB decks. They may not want to pay the life, and they may just return things to their hand. It might end up backfiring a little bit and helping somebody else out, but ultimately it's still going to achieve its goal of speeding that game up. It's like we're doing like turbo group turbo. I need a good word for the last one. Group turbo pain, something like that. Sulfuric Vortex. Beginning of each player's upkeep, it's going to deal 2 damage to that player. If a player would gain life, that player gains no life instead. I'm telling you. So we put a lot of these. Let's speed this game up. It would be great if we ended up playing at the same table with this deck as somebody playing Group Hug. I think it would just be absolutely hilarious, because you're going to have 2 people who are, or maybe even just another deck that's playing a concept like Extort, and everybody's literally just pinging the entire group for 1. And your Extort player isn't able to gain life because we have cards in here that are just saying nobody can gain life. Reveal the cards in your library. An opponent chooses from among them a creature card, a land card, any non-creature, non-land card. You may put the chosen cards into your hand, then shuffle. So we're going to get to, hopefully that person likes us. But they're probably going to look at our deck and just be like, what is going on here? Like I said, very unassuming, but there are a lot of things that you can add into this deck that are really going to make it pop off. But for the most part, super unassuming. So they're just going to be like, I have no idea what's going on, and they're just going to give us the wrong cards, which is great for us. Artemis. I just said Artemis, but it's a Tempsis, the All-Seeing. Win con incoming, and draw 2 cards and discard a card. Whenever a Tempsis All-Seeing deals damage to an opponent, you may reveal your hand. If a card with at least 6 different converted mana costs, if cards with at least 6 converted mana costs are revealed this way, that player loses the game. So we need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. We do have 7. We have a 7 drop. It might be a little hard, but it's considering the amount of draw and the opportunity to put cards into our hand. This actually could happen. So I want to see that. I hope it comes. I hope that the win con happens. That's a fun card to put into high draw decks that are running blue. And we have release the Gremlins. Destroy X target artifacts. Create X 2/2 red gremlin creature tokens. This is really fun because if we get a bunch of our own artifacts off and we have haste out there, but we're not really doing anything with our artifacts, and the board state's pretty clear. We can destroy all of our own artifacts, create a bunch of 2/2 red gremlins, and then swing with them and kill the board. Predator Flagship. All right, 5-drop legendary artifact. and it's going to gain flying until end of turn to creatures for 2, and we can tap it and destroy target creature with flying. So for 7, you basically have removal for anything with flying, because you're going to give target creature flying, and then you're just going to destroy it. Or you can just get your own things passed, which is really cool. You can also use it to give things flying, to make sure that you're going to be able to block things with flying, and I actually kind of like the card. So, considering how long the time is, we're at 40 minutes on the video, I'm not really going to go through these cards, but I will flash through them. These are just some cards that didn't really make the cut, but kind of would be fun to add into this deck, especially Sihili's Artistry. You can see Valakut's right here, a nice little landfall trigger. Bronze Cudgels. I mean, Bronze Cudgel. Let's talk about it. So if you have a ton of mana on the board, you have a flyer or something that just can't be blocked, until end of turn, a quick creature gets +X/+over X as the number of times this ability has resolved this turn. If you can also put this into a deck that is going to reduce the activation cost of equipment down to 0, and it doesn't have a limiter on it where it says activation cost can't be 0, then that's really fun, because we're just going to do that infinitely and make an infinitely strong creature. Circuit Mender, gain 2 life, draw a card. It's going to be great if we can copy this artifact multiple times, or even just recur it. Like I said, there's not a whole lot of life gain in the deck, so that little guy, he can come in handy, especially if we're able to just keep creating copies of him. When this creature enters return, so Elvish Regrower, we're going to return a permanent when it enters into the battlefield to our hand. It's a nice little 4/3. Trepanation Blade. This thing's just cruel. So whenever a quick creature attacks, defending player reveals cards from the top of his or her library until he or she reveals a land card. Good old Kiora. Power 4 greater into the battlefield under your control, you're going to draw a card. And then we have Tatiova Benthic Druid. When a land enters the battlefield under your control, you're going to gain 1 life and draw a card. So, plenty of things in here to play around with. A lot of things that you can still add in and have fun. You can go so many different ways with this deck, as far as landfall, as far as draw. Some cards I was looking at that might be fun to include here. We've got Homunculus Horde from Foundations. Some other things. Let's see. Other things that I like for this deck. Oh my gosh. No, not Stuffy Doll. Stuffy Doll's kind of lame. We see that a lot too. Goodness gracious. You know, actually, I say an Omnath Locus of Rage actually would be pretty cool in here. Oh, there was another one who, what is it that makes... Oh, it's red and green. It makes a bunch of plants, right? I think it's red and green. Let's see here. See if I can find it. I had a bunch of cards bookmarked for just to reference. Is that it? Yes. Okay, it's not red and green. I lied. It's Avenger of Zendikar. So whenever land enters battlefield under your control, you may put a +1/+1 counter on each creature control, and then when it enters the battlefield, you create a 0/1 green plant creature token for each land you control. It is a massive 7-drop though, but considering the amount of landfall opportunity, especially if we start ditching lands and pinging people with those lands, and then we take those lands from our graveyard and start playing them, you're just getting so much out of just one little land. It's really fun. Gosh, another one. Oh, that actually Uro. Titan of Nature's Wrath might go really, really well in this deck. So when he enters the battlefield or attacks, you may gain 3 life and draw a card. Then you may put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield. The only thing I wouldn't really care to do is, we're not gonna escape him. We just don't want to get our lands or give anything from our graveyard like our lands. But for the most part, I mean, those are some cool cards over in our deck. There's one other card. Hydroid Crisis actually might be fun. Yeah, I feel like Hydroid would be nice in here. Especially because it's going to give us draw. It's going to give us life gain. It gives us a nice little flyer. We're going to have decent amounts of land to really get some value out of that card. Even if you're just using him as a blocker, or you're just making him an unblockable flyer and he's able to get through, that's really nice. We get the draw. I mean, I would love the draw, especially with a card like that that's going to also give us life. Oh man, there's so many things that I started thinking about with this deck after we put all the cards together. And the weird thing is that I think just the combination of cards and not so much the awkwardness of that combination, but a lot of the different ways to play it just kept popping up into my head. And I think this is going to be a really fun deck once it gets fine-tuned. Last but not least, Ralph, again, thank you so much for the support, man. Guys, thank you for watching, sticking with me. I know, a long video, 45 minutes. This is how we kick the new year off. So much fun. I love putting these decks together. I love putting these cards together. The value, too, is definitely there. It's a good opportunity to go back and kind of like refresh myself on prices because oh, I went right to it. Oh, that is so epic. You guys can see I went right to it. Glassbowl Mimic, you know, sitting at about $4 or $5 in that foil version. So that was a great find to go into this deck to pump up some value. So even if you peel back this deck, Rolf, and you just take the cards and put them into other decks, I mean, you've got more than $60 in value right there, which is absolutely a fantastic thing for anybody supporting the channel. Because for me, I have fun doing it. The cards are just sitting there anyways. No plans to do anything else with them. They will... yeah. When I say they're sitting there, it is a massive amount. It's absolutely ridiculous. So, anyways, guys, thank you for the support. Enjoy your New Year's. And until next time, Mr. T.